Ubuntu has been the default answer to which Linux distro should I use for well over a decade. For many people, Ubuntu was their first real introduction to Linux, open source software, and the idea that an operating system could be free, customizable, and community-driven. But as we move into 2026, the Linux landscape looks very different from what it did even 5 years ago. Ubuntu is no longer the unquestioned king it once was, and for a growing number of users, it is no longer the best choice either. This does not mean Ubuntu is bad or broken. It simply means the ecosystem has evolved, and other distributions have refined their focus, improved usability, performance, and stability, and in many cases now offer a better experience depending on what you actually want from Linux. One of the biggest reasons people are rethinking Ubuntu is Canonical's increasing push towards snap packages. While snaps have some advantages, like sandboxing and easier cross-distro distribution, many users feel they are slower, heavier, and less transparent than traditional package formats. The forced snap versions of core applications like Firefox frustrated a lot of longtime users, especially those who value control and simplicity. Add to that Canonical's corporate direction, controversial decisions over telemetry in the past, and a feeling that Ubuntu sometimes prioritizes its own ecosystem over the wider Linux community, and it becomes clear why people are looking elsewhere. Another factor is that Linux itself has matured. Desktop environments like KDE Plasma, GNOME, Cinnamon, and Cosmic have become more polished than ever. Hardware support has improved dramatically. Gaming on Linux is now genuinely competitive thanks to Proton and Vulkan, and immutable operating systems are becoming mainstream. In 2026, switching away from Ubuntu does not mean sacrificing convenience or compatibility. In many cases, it means gaining a faster, cleaner, and more focused system that better matches your needs. Let's start with Linux Mint, which for many people feels like what Ubuntu used to be before things became complicated. Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu, but it deliberately strips away many of the decisions that frustrated users. It avoids snap by default, relies on traditional apt packages, and focuses on stability and simplicity. The Cinnamon desktop environment has matured into one of the most user-friendly desktop experiences on any operating system, not just Linux. It feels familiar to Windows users without trying to copy Windows outright, and it stays out of your way. In 2026, Linux Mint continues to shine because of its conservative approach. It does not chase every new trend. Instead, it waits for things to be proven stable before adopting them. Updates are predictable, the system rarely breaks, and performance remains excellent even on older hardware. For people who want a just-works Linux desktop without Canonical's influence, Mint is often the easiest and safest switch away from Ubuntu. It is especially appealing for home users, students, and professionals who want reliability over experimentation. If you like the idea of Ubuntu's stability but want something more powerful and flexible, Debian itself is a strong contender. Debian is the foundation on which Ubuntu is built, and in many ways, it represents Linux in its purest form. It is community-driven, extremely stable, and deeply respected across the open-source world. Debian's stable branch is famous for its reliability, often running for years without major issues. In 2026, Debian has become more user-friendly than ever, with improved installers, better hardware detection, and more up-to-date desktop environments than it had in the past. Debian is ideal for users who want complete control over their system and do not want corporate agendas shaping their operating system. It is slower moving than Ubuntu, but that is a feature, not a flaw. For servers, workstations, and even desktops where stability is critical, Debian often outperforms Ubuntu simply because it changes less and breaks less. If you are comfortable doing a little initial setup and want a rock-solid system that respects traditional Linux values, Debian is a compelling alternative. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Arch Linux represents freedom, customization, and cutting-edge software. Arch is not for everyone, but for those willing to learn, it offers an experience Ubuntu cannot match. Arch follows a rolling release model, meaning you always have the latest software, kernels, and drivers without needing to reinstall your system every few years. In 2026, Arch has become more accessible thanks to tools like ArchInstall, better documentation, and a massive community that shares solutions for almost any problem you can imagine. What really sets Arch apart is the Arch user repository, often called the OR. This community-driven repository contains thousands of packages that are not available in official repositories on most distributions. If you want the newest version of a niche tool, a beta release of an application, or software that is otherwise hard to install, chances are it exists in the OR for power users, developers, and enthusiasts who want full control and the latest software. Arch often feels like the true Linux experience. Compared to Ubuntu, it is lighter, faster, and more transparent, though it does require more responsibility from the user. For those who like Arch's philosophy but want something easier to install and manage, Manjaro remains a popular choice in 2026. Manjaro is based on Arch but adds user-friendly tools, a graphical installer, and a curated update process that delays Arch updates slightly to improve stability. This makes it more forgiving for everyday use while still providing access to modern software and the OR. Manjaro also offers excellent hardware detection out of the box, including proprietary drivers when needed, which is something Ubuntu used to be praised for. The availability of multiple desktop editions, especially KDE Plasma, gives users a highly polished and customizable environment. For users who feel Ubuntu is too restrictive but Arch is too intimidating, Manjaro often hits the sweet spot. Fedora is another distribution that, in many ways, surpasses Ubuntu in 2026. Sponsored by Red Hat but driven by a strong community, Fedora focuses on innovation while maintaining a high level of quality. It often introduces new technologies before they reach other distributions, such as Wayland, Pipewire, and newer file system features. Unlike Ubuntu, Fedora tends to push upstream technologies without heavily modifying them, which means you often get a more vanilla experience of GNOME or KDE. Fedora's release cycle strikes a balance between stability and freshness. You get newer software than Ubuntu's LTS releases, but with a predictable upgrade path every 6 months. For developers, Fedora is especially attractive because it closely aligns with Enterprise Linux through Red Hat Enterprise Linux, making it a great testing ground for modern Linux applications. If you want a modern, clean, and forward-looking Linux desktop without the Snap ecosystem, Fedora is a strong reason to leave Ubuntu behind. Another interesting option in 2026 is openSUSE, particularly openSUSE Tumbleweed and Leap. openSUSE is often overlooked, but it offers some of the most advanced system management tools in the Linux world. UST, its configuration tool, allows you to manage almost every aspect of your system from a single interface, something Ubuntu has never really matched. Tumbleweed is a rolling release distribution that emphasizes stability through automated testing, making it one of the most reliable rolling distributions available. openSUSE is ideal for users who want cutting-edge software but also value system integrity and testing. The BTRF's file system with snapshot support is integrated by default, allowing you to roll back your system if an update causes issues. This alone makes it feel more robust than Ubuntu for many advanced users. If you appreciate engineering, quality assurance, and powerful tools, openSUSE can feel like a significant upgrade. For users who care deeply about privacy, security, and transparency, distributions like Fedora Silverblue, openSUSE MicroOS, and other immutable Linux systems are becoming increasingly attractive in 2026. These systems treat the operating system as a read-only base that updates atomically, reducing the risk of breakage and making the system more secure. Applications are installed via containers or Flatpak, isolating them from the core system. Compared to Ubuntu's traditional model, immutable distributions offer a radically different approach that aligns better with modern computing trends. They are particularly appealing for developers, security-conscious users, and anyone who wants a system that is hard to accidentally break. While Ubuntu has experimented with similar ideas, it has not fully committed to immutability in the same way these distributions have. pop_OS deserves special mention as well, especially for users coming from Ubuntu. Developed by System76, pop_OS is based on Ubuntu but takes a very different approach to the desktop experience. It focuses heavily on productivity, with features like automatic window tiling, keyboard-driven workflows, and excellent support for NVIDIA graphics out of the box. In 2026, pop_OS has continued to evolve its own cosmic desktop environment, moving away from GNOME and offering something genuinely unique. pop_OS feels like Ubuntu reimagined for power users, developers, and creators. It avoids Snap, prioritizes performance, and integrates well with modern hardware. If you like Ubuntu's base but dislike Canonical's decisions, pop_OS often feels like a more user-focused alternative that respects your time and workflow. Elementary OS is another distro that appeals to a very specific audience. It focuses on design, simplicity, and consistency, often compared to Mac OS in terms of aesthetics. While it may not be as flexible as Ubuntu or as powerful as Arch, it offers a refined experience that many users appreciate. In 2026, Elementary OS continues to improve its app ecosystem, privacy controls, and performance, making it a solid choice for users who want Linux to feel elegant and minimal. For gamers, Ubuntu used to be the default recommendation, largely because of its driver support and Steam compatibility. But in 2026, that advantage has largely disappeared. Distributions like Nobara Linux, which is based on Fedora and optimized for gaming, offer better performance, newer drivers, and gaming-focused tweaks out of the box. Combined with Proton, Lutris, and modern GPU support, these gaming-focused distros often outperform Ubuntu with less manual configuration. There is also a growing interest in distributions that emphasize ethical software, community governance, and independence from large corporations. Distros like EndeavourOS, which is based on Arch but community-driven and lightweight, appeal to users who want a clean system without corporate branding or heavy customization. EndeavourOS gives you Arch with a friendly installer and sensible defaults, without trying to reinvent the wheel. When you step back and look at the Linux ecosystem in 2026, it becomes clear that Ubuntu is no longer the center of gravity. It is just one option among many, and not always the best one. The idea that beginners should automatically use Ubuntu is outdated. Today, beginners can choose Linux Mint, Fedora, or even Manjaro, and have an excellent experience from day one. Power users can enjoy Arch, openSUSE, or immutable systems that offer more control and resilience than Ubuntu ever did. Switching away from Ubuntu is not about rejecting what it achieved. Ubuntu played a huge role in making Linux accessible to millions of people. But the very success of Linux has allowed other distributions to flourish, specialize, and improve. In 2026, the best Linux distro is not a single answer, but a question of what you value most. Do you want stability above all else, or do you want the latest software? Do you care about privacy and transparency, or productivity and performance? Do you want a system that looks beautiful, or one that you can shape into anything you want? What matters is that you are no longer limited. You do not have to accept decisions you disagree with just because that's how Ubuntu does it. The Linux world is richer, more diverse, and more capable than ever before. Whether you choose Mint for its simplicity, Fedora for its innovation, Arch for its freedom, openSUSE for its robustness, or Pop_OS for its productivity, you are choosing a distro that, in many ways, is better suited to 2026 than Ubuntu itself. The real takeaway is this: Linux has grown up. It no longer revolves around a single distribution. Ubuntu may still be popular, but popularity does not always equal the best experience. In 2026, switching away from Ubuntu is not a risk. For many users, it is an upgrade.